Welcome to the Instant Legolas channel. Yes, you realize that I've been into these repeating bows recently very much because I love how powerful and effective they are, and plus I invented them and therefore I'm naturally very enthusiastic about them. But I already saw that a lot of other channels are on them too. Now today I want to find out something really interesting because this is a longbow that I can handle. It's a 55-pound longbow, and I can probably even handle like a 70-pound longbow, although with difficulties. But like Joe Gibbs, who weighs 170 pounds and can draw 210 pounds, that is nothing that I could do. Not because I'm not strong enough, I probably am strong enough for it, but you have to develop the right technique, plus you need like a chain of muscles involving some really small muscles that you would normally not train in a gym. So if you don't practice archery with heavy warbows, it is, I think, impossible for normal people to handle bows heavier than maybe 70 pounds. But I want to be able to shoot heavy warbows. I want to do it, and I want to make a repeating system for it. So the only thing that can help here is technology. So I head down and invent something that lets me shoot a really heavy warbow. But first I had to get one. And then Ian from Boston Bows UK actually contacted me and said he can make a reproduction of a heavy warbow as found on the Mary Rose, the sunken ship. And he said he can make one for me and send it to me. And of course, I think he would probably have given it to me for free if I would really have asked. But I think that would be unfair. We have to honor his craftsmanship, and I won't be taking any gifts from someone like him. So I had to scratch together the money, and that was well over 1,000 pounds. But it's worth it. So I asked the people from Plarium, one of my most important sponsors, if they would be willing to jump in and sponsor another video for me, and they said yes. So here is another sponsored video that was only possible because of these guys. So, but why am I always coming back to Raid, the game Raid, for sponsored videos? Well, first of all, it's because of the game, and second, it's because of Plarium as a team. Let's start with the game side, and let's forget all the pre-formulated nonsense that you've seen on a million other channels that they also sponsor. I like Raid because it's one of the few games that I actually like to play. Why do I like to play it? Well, first of all, I think the game has a very super cool design. I actually visited these designers in Ukraine, in Kharkiv, and they are so committed, and they spend so much time working on the details of the champions, the weapons, the artifacts, just everything. And I have to admire this kind of art that they put into it. What I really like is that it's easy to play. I mean, I'm not really a gamer. I don't have the time to learn complicated games and complicated rules and complex moves on a controller. But Raid isn't like that. There's even an autoplay function. You let it play so you can watch, how your champions perform while you can do other things. And if you want, you can take over control and then control every detail. Raid is completely focused on muscle-powered weapons. Yes, they are superheroes and bosses and everything that can handle weapons that are way too heavy and too big for human beings. But after all, they're still like bows and swords and spears and, everything. So, and I think the detail that they put into these weapons is just astounding. So how would I not love a game that has lots of muscle-operated weapons? Because that is what my channel is all about. I have this collector's gene, I'm not sure if you have it too, but I collect many different things. I collect crossbows, I collect pocket knives like folding knives and so on. I just can't stop doing it, I can't fight it. If it's cool, I want to collect it. And I think Raid very much appeals to this because they now have like 500 champions and they're adding new champions and enhancing the old every day. So 500 champions, legendaries that you can find if you're in luck. So I love collecting them and I love to develop them into EP super powerful. Very cool game, I like to play it. But there's the other reason why I go back to Raid as a sponsor. Why is that? Because I love the company. See, These people are completely committed to what they're doing. They've been working on this game for years, and they even invited me. So I came over and checked out how they work. You know, I was able to sneak into everybody's office and look at all the cool sketches that they have and all the programs that they're using. Very cool. And the enormous amount of efforts that they put into weapon design is also really, really interesting. They also design weapons just like myself, but they do it in computer graphics and I do it with plywood. But let's come to the point. The most important reason, I think, is because not just myself, but a whole lot of YouTubers that are edgy, you know, only exist these days because of raid. Because, you know, if your channel has to do with weapons, then you know that YouTube is shadow banning you. You know that you won't be monetized much. Without sponsors like Plarium, I think a lot of really cool channels would be no more. I mean, they single-handedly saved a whole lot of channels that I actually appreciate, and you appreciate probably too. Therefore, I think they deserve our support. And therefore, I really encourage you, because it's a super cool game and because if it's a fantastic, supportive company, you know, download it and play it. And if you don't like it, then do something else. But if you like it, well, keep on playing. The game actually exists on both Android and iPhone platform, but it also is a computer game. So you can also download the game for your desktop or notebook PC. And if you are a new player, you will actually get cool rewards. For a whole month, like 30 days, you get 100,000 silver coins, 1 energy refill, 3 ancient shards. What are those? Never used shards, I guess. And also a free champion. Oh, free champions I like. Adjudicator is the latest one that they have, and you can get it for free. Just follow the link. Alright, back to my video. So with the help of Plarium and Raid, I was able to afford this monster bow. I mean, this is a bow that is just amazing. It is made from yew, which means that it's the real stuff. This is just the real thing as they have used it in medieval times. And this one has more than 170 pounds of a draw weight. So that is even for the Mary Rose bows that they found. It's in the upper part. So a lot of the bows that they found on the Mary Rose warbows have been lower, much lower than 170 pounds. And this bow is like so crazy. Now keep in mind, this bow has 55 pounds. And the bow that Ian made for me has 55 pounds after maybe, I don't know, 20 centimeters of a draw. so it's completely crazy. I mean, the full power of the bow is more than 3 times higher than this one. Imagine, this bow, it's not a weak bow at all. It's actually one of the strongest longbows that you can just get online. But he made one for me that is as thick as this. And it has 170 pounds. There's no way I can draw it. But my idea is to take the bow, mount it so that I can press it against my chest, and then use a release that actually lets me draw it from here. So that I can use both arms, just like on a rowing machine in the gym, to draw it back. So that is my idea. But of course, I need to build a whole contraption for this. So, have I been able to do it? I think so. Let me show you what I came up with. Meet the instant Joe Gibbs. Let me show you its features. Ian also made these Mary Rose replica bolts for me, except of course that they have a half moon knock now for the instant Joe Gibbs. And see, they have like heavy tips. That is the comparison with the normal modern day wooden like longbow arrow. But of course these are so much thicker. I mean, these are like 8mm and these have like 1/2 inch dimension here. But they actually taper a little bit towards the end, much thinner at the end. But they weigh like 75 grams, which is really heavy for an arrow. I mean, these ones are more like 25 grams. So this is like 3 times as heavy. It's like a billiard cue in comparison. And I made a modern one in my own workshop with just modern plastic vanes and a nail as a tip. And those are made from 12mm dowels. And they also work. Now, before I made the Instant Legolas sliding magazine for it, I just wanted a proof of concept, so I made this little two-handed release. So that allowed me to simulate it, and I found that it was possible for me, not with a lot of reserve, but it was possible for me to fully draw out the 170-pound bow. And therefore I went ahead and integrated this into the sliding magazine. The device, of course, has a wooden spring made from an old arrow that I can just lift out. See, there's tension on it. And you just load the arrows in just like you always do on an Instant Legolas. It actually holds 4 of these arrows. Now, as you see, the device has several attachments. First of all, this is just a normal sliding Instant Legolas that I can push to the front and automatically engages on the string, like so. And then I have this setup here, which turns the bow into some kind of rowing machine, because I can press this here against my chest and then draw back with both arms holding onto this handle here. And as you see, there is an integrated little release device here that allows me to send the arrow on the way. And this actually allows me to master this huge, really thick, super powerful 170-pound warbow, shooting these heavy arrows. And this here is very important too, because this allows me to actually grab onto it and pull with my fingers the last few centimeters and hold onto it so I can aim, because otherwise with this huge load of the bow I would be like shivering like crazy, and it would be very hard to hit anything. But this here allows me to do this in peace, aim and hopefully hit. I built a very easy kind of frame consisting of this piece of wood, and this here is the foot piece, and they're actually attached with joints. So I can move them in 2 directions, and this is so I can aim up and down. It's very simple. I put my foot onto here to stabilize it, like so. And then I can adjust for the height. And then I can pull back on the bow, like so. Last few centimeters I do with my fingers. And then I can aim, see? And also sideways a little bit. That's easy. And then I can fire. Bang! And then I can repeat the whole thing. Very simple. But how much difference does it really make? How much more power would you be able to generate from a 170-pound bow versus against like a 75 or a 55-pound bow, like the one I have? Because recently in one of Shad's videos on Shadiversity, you can actually see that the difference wasn't all that great. The bows, in terms of distance, behave very much the same. So I think he was testing like a 70-pound bow versus a 100-pound bow. But will we see the difference in the target impact? Well, I'm coming back to a video on Todd's workshop. Actually, I think it's one of his most successful videos, where he, together with the great Joe Gibbs, was testing longbow arrows against real armor. And he found that they could dent it, but they could actually not kill the person behind it. Therefore, I'm trying to replicate the same thing here. I took a steel piece, it's actually 1mm steel, and put it in front of a, let me show this to you, of a piece of plywood here. So, and then the whole thing got, that's it here. You see the whole thing was attached to my archery target mat. And what we want to do is we want to see if the longbow actually can put a dent in here and maybe even put a small hole into it, and then we'll see what the warbow is going to do. Last time a lot of people said I'm tricking my audience because I'm shooting against aluminum, saying it is steel. Well, let me prove. First, this is a small magnet, and as you see, it clings to it. Wouldn't do that with aluminum, right? But just because now the wise butts will say there is metal behind it somewhere, or there is glue on this thing here, I have another really bulletproof way to show you how this works. Angle grinder. Now if I put the angle grinder to it and there are sparks, then it is steel, believe me. Happy now? Okay, 55-pound instant Legolas against the steel plate. It sticks in, quite powerful. I think the steel is maybe a little bit, how should I put it, weaker and thinner than the ones in Todd's video. You know what, on closer inspection I would say this is not the case, since you see, yes it does stick in, but if you look at how, it was just sticking in like 2 millimeters. And the hole is tiny, so that knight would easily have survived. And we've seen also in Todd's video that the bow did create a little dent in it, just not very deep. So very much like this here. So this is probably a little weaker than real medieval armor, but not by much. Okay, now we'll do the same thing with the 170-pound monster. Whoa! Did you see that whole target thing shaking? Wow! Okay, this clearly was causing a lot more damage than the previous arrow. See how deep it sunk itself into this? Let me see if I can get it out. I think maybe the tip is going to come off. Yeah, the tip is all the way in. Here is one of these tips, because that one I only will get out if I turn it around and hammer it out again. This is one of these mean, really heavy bodkin tips. And of course they're glued in just like the original. And to give you a feeling how deep that is in, I would say it went a good maybe 2 inches, maybe 1.5 inches into the target mat, and that would have been the body of the poor knight. So this would not have killed the knight, but it would definitely have wounded. By the way, I removed this thing from the archery mat, and here you can see the damage caused by the heavy arrow, whereas there is not a scratch on the backside from the impact of the weaker arrow from the 55-pound bow. I always wanted to find out how a modern day hunting compound bow would compare against one of these warbows, but so far I haven't been able to draw these warbows back. Now we have that comparison, and I want to compare it to the great Liberty One riserless hunting bow that I like. I think it's my most favorite bow. It's not cheap, but it's really super cool. I have had it for many years and it still is in super condition. This one has 70 pounds of a draw, and we're firing a carbon arrow. See how it behaves against the steel target. Wow! Sticks right in. I think the impact was so hard that the knock flew away. Let's take another arrow from the same make and compare how much penetration it had. Okay, you can see here penetration was, I'd say that's probably 15 centimeters. So that's how much, 6 inches or so. And I think that would have probably heavily injured the knight behind it, probably even killed that person. So of course there's definitely better armor than this one, but someone with a poor set of armor, I think with a modern hunting bow, he would be dead now. Wow. Who would have thought this tiny bow actually outperforms this monstrous, really super big 170-pound thing that nobody but Joe Gibbs can pull. I love technology, don't you too? So if a modern small hunting bow outperforms the 170-pound longbow, actually how does a state-of-the-art but affordable crossbow like the EK Archery Accelerator 410, here with my little conversion so it can also shoot shotgun pellets, how does it perform? We're going to use one of my special aluminum bolts with only 2 vanes and shoot it, and then compare the penetration versus the penetration of the arrow shot from the Liberty One bow. Whoa! Whoa! All right. Yeah, that is some kind of power. Technology just amazes me time and time again. Imagine if such weapons would have been available in medieval times. Before we dismantle the target, let us see what this aluminum ram bone with a yellow coat is, and a triple layer bend set shooting 20mm steel balls is gonna do. I hope that it's gonna be a nice dent. No chance of penetration though. Okay. Whoa, not bad. Do one more. Saw the dust? So this is the impact comparison. So this one actually is the arrow, it broke off, but I tried to pull it out and see how far the crossbow penetrated. That poor guy would not have stand a chance. And whereas the dents from the steel balls are impressive, there's only a tiny little crack where it hit. So therefore I think armor would be a very good protection against steel balls. So I'm gonna try to shoot 3 shots, aimed shots, as quickly as possible so that we get a feeling for the maximum shot frequency, which won't definitely not be nearly as high as for the other instant Legolas devices. But, well, let's try. And oh, I think it broke. Tough chance. Okay. You see, what happened is that the impact of the string was so hard that it was actually splitting the rear end of the arrow. And I think that is because Ian, not knowing anything about the instant Legolas, made these arrows the way how he would make them for a normal longbow. But in the instant Legolas, they are shot in a different way. So this actually, the string on a normal bow, the way how he meant it to be, what would be hitting the arrow this way. But now I'm hitting it this way, and therefore I'm splitting it right where he put in the little horn element. So it wasn't his fault, but it's clear that it happened. I think it can be repaired with a little bit of glue, but well, you saw that the shot was of course less powerful than the first 2. Some questions and their answers. First of all, why not making it like the ratchet system or putting it down on the ground and stamping on it? I got a ton of such suggestions from people. Well, the answer is quite clear. I don't want to make a crossbow. I want a device that I can still keep trained at the target while reloading, and reloading speed for me is most important. There have been crossbows for a long time. Chinese people had crossbows, powerful crossbows. So why would I benefit from turning a longbow into a crossbow? Crossbows can be done with a different way, much more compact and powerful. So therefore I have no intention to ever turn this into a crossbow. Then people say, why not adding an assist system, like an assisting bow or rubber or so on? Well, first of all, rubber, I'm not going to do that because there was no rubber in medieval times. But also because this setup is not made for this purpose. Since this works like a rowing machine in the gym, but it's not working like a bench press system. So when I push this forward to reload, I can only do this with one hand because the other hand has to hold on to it, so that I have a counter thing. Otherwise I would just shift the entire setup to the front. Therefore, what I would have to build is, I would have to build like a device that goes around my back and then kind of squeezing me in between this part and the rear part. Then I could do it. But I'm not sure if it would really help, and also it would make the device immensely clumsy. I still think that this is quite portable. I mean, this is not heavy at all, and you can fold it together. And of course you can always detach the bow, which is completely unchanged. So therefore I think this is a viable setup that could have been made in medieval times, since it's just a little bit of wood. Another question, isn't the friction not going to add a lot more draw weight to it? Because that's what Joe Gibbs said when he was shooting the medieval instant Legolas. He said it feels like 30 pounds heavier. Well, I found that the solution to the friction problem isn't grease. What the solution to the friction problem is play. See, this has a ton of play. The front rail here is absolutely loose fitting, and this means that there isn't a lot of friction. If the tolerances are getting too tight, then you have to use grease and all these things. Here, the tolerance makes sure that nothing is happening. And aiming, you actually aim over the barrel of this thing, so it doesn't really matter so much if it rattles a little bit where it's attached to the bow. The bow is simply the energy storage device, but this is where, the accuracy is coming from. Then, yes, I've used screws and I've used plywood that some people say existed in medieval times, others said it did not exist. Well, I think Todd absolutely proved that it was possible for a medieval bowyer to actually make an instant Legolas with the materials and tools that they had back then. So why would I put the additional work into this? It was enough work already, believe me. I had to invent it and then build it and then refine it until it worked. So it was enough work to do this with the plywood that I had. I did not intend this time to make it all medieval. But I think that it is absolutely clear that it could have been done with medieval tools. And the inevitable discussion, would that have been changed the history? Would that have made a difference? I'm not sure. I don't really think so. I think that this is a little bit too awkward to be carried around in battlefield. I basically built it to show that it can be built. And also I wanted to be able to master the 170-pound bow, which I think I did. And actually, people, don't forget to download the game. Use the link down there that I put down there for you. You get all these rewards. Plus also, don't forget that it was Raid who made this video possible, since I could never have bought this beautiful bow without the help of Raid and the sponsor, Plarium. So, I hope you like this, because that's it for today. One last time, I'm going to be sore tonight. It's hard work. Bye. Bye.